Welcome to Heart Talks with Dr. Gloria. I'm Dr. Gloria Thomas Anderson, and today I'm excited to have LaDonna McCullough with us. She is going to talk with us a little bit about some of the myths that are prevailing in our African American community around COVID-19. We're going to talk a little bit about loss and how to deal with that and finding strength when you've gone through loss through this pandemic. So welcome, LaDonna.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm glad you're here. Tell us a little bit about you first, just about Critical Social Change, your organization. I'd like the audience to know more about that.
Yes. So again, I'm LaDonna McCullough, and I am the founder and CEO of the Critical Social Change Project. And we are a firm that helps guide organizations, especially educational, faith-based, and government institutions around their systems level change initiatives, specifically dealing with cultural change, right? So not just necessarily on a aesthetic or race, the numbers, like who's present, but actually how that impacts them through feeling welcomed and engaged and truly being able to advance and really be a part of the culture of the organization that they spend each and every day in wanting to make a difference through the roles that they do.
Yeah, well, that's great work. I know we go back to UMKC days.
Yes.
You've always been inspiration for me in terms of what your work has been with cultural competency and helping organizations and people also understand how important it is to know that diversity is just meaning difference. And it doesn't mean that we are different in many ways. We are all human and we all need to come together in that understanding to respect those differences. So thank you for that work. Thank you for that work. Well,
Thank you.
With the topic today, I know we don't have a lot of time, but I really felt this was a real important topic based on our conversation recently where you shared about the loss of your aunt to COVID-19. Would you share with us how the family is doing and how that happened and how you're finding strength, how it's your faith is upholding through this?
Yes. So I think now we are a little bit stronger than than where we were mentally roughly 3.5 weeks ago. So we learned about my aunt falling ill and having to be hospitalized and kind of getting updates right through her daughter. So what happened was her daughter found her passed out. My cousin found her passed out in the bathroom and unconscious and not breathing. And so the emergency services took her to the hospital. And from there, that was like the last familial contact, right? So over a course of maybe a week and a half, we're getting updates about her status. And at some point, we were told she was being taken off of the ventilator. And so we're optimistic, right? Because that must mean something good is happening. They're taking her off and they want to see how well she will do off of it. But really what was happening was that they weren't taking her off, right? So there's this issue of language, right? That's being communicated to us about a Black woman who was hospitalized and how that's being communicated to us secondhand. Because no one is there with her, right? And so what was happening was that they were turning it down, not taking her off, which is two totally different things, right? So the power, whatever settings they had it on, they were reducing it at certain points of the day and then increasing it at later times. And so at some point though, her doctor that was caring for her felt really optimistic that she was going to make it through. And unfortunately, the following day, she passed away. Right. And so, which is really interesting because you think about what you're doing, what's happening when you learn about a loved one passing. Right. And so that morning we were out trying to make a quick run to get provisions because, shelter in place. Right. So, and keeping our distance and trying to be safe at that time. And then getting a phone call right when it's starting to rain, right, that she passed away. So it's like, the gloominess, the overcast happens, but also it happens in our hearts, right? And so mentally, right, I'm with my mother and we just kind of both, we cannot believe it. And then I'm thinking about my cousins, because she has 4 children, and especially my cousin who found her daughter, the only daughter. And I'm just wondering, like, what is that like to know now that you found your mother in this capacity, but you never again got to see her, right? You never again got to say anything to her. And I just couldn't imagine it, because knowing how my cousins are, how we all are with our parents, how close we are, right? And I'm thinking about my own mother, never ever having the chance to like give her a kiss on the cheek and say, whatever final words you want to say, because you are informed that, this may be it, but instead you were optimistic because you got good information, good news in a sense. And so that really kind of took everyone by surprise, and not just those of us who are here in Kansas City, but also family throughout the country, right? Because no one could believe that this particular person had died, that our aunt, their sister-in-law, all of that she was no longer with us, right? And so the reality of what that means, and how do you cope with that when you cannot go and touch a loved one? Right. I can't go talk to my cousins and sit down and let them cry on my shoulders and all of those types of things. And so the dynamic of that changed, right? And so we began like this series of text messages at first, right? Just because I know you're coping, and I don't know, you're being bombarded with calls and things. So I don't want to put pressure on you, but when you're ready to talk, let me know. And that's how that happened.
Let me ask you something on that note. To me, that's you were really showing a way to connect with people when you can't touch.
Right.
And so that was one of the ways that you have done that, right? You've just done the text message and saying something from your heart like that.
Yes.
To
yes.
let them know.
Yes. So it started because at first I was going to call, and then it was just, everybody, because this is their mother, and then she has a lot of siblings. So this was my my uncle's wife, but she has been my aunt since before I was born, right? So so she has her own set of siblings, and so that side I was sure that they were communicating with that side of the family, and just people trying to reach out. And it can be overwhelming. I know what it's like to lose. I lost my father, so I know what it's like to lose someone, and when you're a parent, and when people are trying to reach out and see if you're okay. And so I didn't want to add to the numerous phone calls. And so I thought about it, prayed, and I was like, God, just give me the words to say, right? And so I just sent the text saying, hey, I know my aunt is no longer here, your mother. I cannot imagine what you're experiencing, because I haven't lost a mom. However, she was like a mom to me. And when you're ready to talk, just let me know. And as soon as I sent the message, my cousin, she called me, right? She is immediate. And she was like, I've been dodging everybody's calls, but I saw your message and I just wanted to talk to you. She said, because we all grew up together. So we were that family, that group of cousins that were always together. We even went to school, like elementary school, to the same elementary school and all of that stuff. And so it was one of those things where we're like, she's like, are you okay? Because, and I'm like, why are you asking about me? I mean, yes, I'm, thank you, but no, I'm not okay like that, but I'm not okay. You know what I mean? Like how you're experiencing this. And she was like, no, LaDonna, y'all were close. And so are you okay? And so we just both, fell out into laughter, because we were both so concerned about one another. And it gave us a chance to then start talking about, do you remember when she used to do such and such? And you remember how we thought she was so mean? And now that we're grown, we know that was tough love and all, all of those types of things. And so, I think it's just trying to be mindful, right? And what does that look like right now when we are forced into connecting through digital capacities, right? But also not wanting to overwhelm people during their time of grief, but then trying to also understand how they understand what is actually happening in this unprecedented time. And it's just one of those things where the impact of it wasn't just that she passed, but they had all been sick from the virus, right? Even down to the grandchildren. And so how is this impacting a family? Because on the same day that she passed, her grandson, a 9-year-old, was being rushed to the hospital from symptoms of the virus and not being able to breathe, right? And so you can't have people, loved ones, go in with you. What does that mean for a child who's 9, who has to navigate the healthcare system by himself, right? Or herself, or, you know, because that's different, right? You when you're an adult, you've had a history of going, you know, and you kind of figure it out and everything. But what is a 9-year-old, a 5-year-old, a toddler, even a teenager? How scared or you know, what are these thoughts that are going through their minds? And so it made me think about this situation made me think about how messaging around COVID has been occurring.
Okay.
Right. And how I think a lot of people around me who look like me have been misguided to believe that this is a virus that cannot get us, cannot impact us, that it's older white people who are dying from this virus. And that's not the truth. You know, my aunt still had a lot of life ahead of her, right? I think she had just turned 60, so she was still very young.
Yeah.
And so what does that mean when, you know, when you are, even if it's underlying, you already have underlying illnesses, or you're healthy, because there are healthy people of color who are dying from COVID-19 every single day.
Right.
But there are also a lot of us who don't believe this to be real.
Well, LaDonna, on that note, what would you say to people who don't believe it to be real? What would be the conversation that you would have with someone who just, you know, was thinking this is just, oh, it's not serious. I mean, it's not going to bother me.
Yeah. So my suggestion is to, one, because I feel like we are all impacted in some way, or we know someone who knows someone who their family has been affected by this, right? So reach out through your networks and just ask questions, check in on those who are connected to you, who you say that you love and care about, and see how they are doing, right? Not only that, pay attention to what's happening in the news beyond just the kind of the platforms of social media or the propaganda that is being shoved upon us in regards to this pandemic, but really open your mind up and see what is occurring. Like, we're not on shelter in place or shutdowns for any, you know, just for no reason. It's very serious, and also it's not going away.
Right.
You know, we're opening back up in certain phases throughout the country, but there is no cure. No, there are still people sick. And I fear that we're going to find ourselves back in the same place again, because we haven't taken the time to do what's necessary. But it's definitely not a myth. And I think when you reach out to others, you'll find how this is truly impacting those of us from communities of color, low income communities, and things of that nature.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for those words of wisdom, and then sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate that so much. In our closing talk points, I think I would just like to ask you if you would have any words of encouragement for other people who are going through loss right now.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, for me, it's prayer, but it's also taking the time to connect to others. I have gone just intentionally through my contact list just to say, hey, I'm thinking about you. I know we don't talk every day, but there are times when I'm thinking about you and I say to myself, I'm going to call him or her today, and it doesn't happen. Now it's time to be intentional, because we don't know. We don't know how quickly it can turn for the bad. You know, it doesn't mean that everyone is going to make it through it, or that everyone is going to pass away from this. You just don't know. So just take the time. It can be as simple as saying hi and I love you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I am so grateful for the opportunity to talk with you about this. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Heart Talks with Dr. Gloria. I am so grateful for you and appreciate you for being a part of this conversation with us. And if there are other topics that you'd like for us to cover in our community, please do let us know. You know, send me a text or put it in our community chat, and we'll look at those, because I want this to be a way for all of us to have a way to be encouraged and to give hope while we're dealing with this pandemic situation. So thank you so much for being with us today, and I hope that you can join us for the next episode of Heart Talks with Dr. Gloria. God bless you.